today is the World Autism Day. So with us right now, a few folks are going to talk to us a little bit about autism and what it is. I have Miss Tanya Hyacinth from the Special Education Desk in the Ministry of Education. I have Sir Johnson Louis, who's a parent of a child with autism, and then Miss Williams, who is the Vice Principal at the School for Special Education down the Limes in Grand Anse. So good morning and welcome.
Yes,
good morning.
President, good morning.
All right, I hope I got all credentials accurate.
Yes.
And names.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, autism, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who haven't even heard of the term or what it is. What is autism?
Okay, I guess I'll define it. Autism is really a behavioral and developmental disorder. It's characterized by three different areas in terms of difficulties or disabilities, which are communication, which is the first one, social interaction, and then stereotypical behavior.
Okay. So stereotypical behavior, like
But the stereotypical behavior, right, the repetition of something. So some of them you would find them rocking back and forth, or they'll be going in circles, or even flapping their hands, which is one of the major signs of autism. Playing with trains or one particular toy in one particular way. Those are some of the repetitive behaviors you would see.
Okay, and that comes under the stereotypical.
Yes, under the
types.
stereotypical types.
Okay, and then the communication. What are sort of the signs of communication? What are the differences in communication?
In terms of communication, some of them do not respond to their names by 12 months of age, which babies at that point should be able to respond to their names. Some of them have delayed speech or no speech at all, so some of them are actually nonverbal. We also see characteristics of what we call echolalia, which would be repeating words or phrase, and that can be in two forms, either delayed or immediate. There are a number of communications that is a bit lengthy but to go through, but those are the prominent signs.
Okay. When you say non-verbal, is it that they're physically unable to speak, or it's just a mental, I don't want to say decision because it's not necessarily their choice. But.
No. That has not been quite cleared as yet in terms of the research, but they are non-verbal, so they would not speak. So what we would have to do is come up with what we call picture communication exchange. So they'll have a picture with an object of their desire or their wish, and they'll present it to you, and that's their form of communication. So that would have to be taught to them.
Right, okay. And what was the third area you said?
Social interaction.
Social interaction.
So no eye contacts. That's a big thing. Most of us, when we're having conversations, would look at one another, and that you don't find in them. They would be playing on their own. So there's no pretend play, or they play on their own, there's no interaction with others. They don't understand someone else's feelings, or teasing. Why people tease our what we call some of our lingos, they would not pick up. So all of that takes into contact. I don't know if Ms. Phillip or Mr. St. Louis Ms. Williams, sorry, or Mr. St. Louis has anything to add to that.
Yes, well, in terms of, danger, they do not aware of the environment and their danger, except that you take them to see how far they can respond to certain dangers, And again, this goes on with time. You have to constantly repeating, those activities, over and over and over and over and over until you get tired, in fact, so that they can, get into the normal, because as Ms. Hyacinth explained, they have this type of stereotype behavior. So if they get onto a particular thing that they like, they will spend hours and hours in the same thing. So normally you might give them just a short period of that, so they enjoy themselves, but don't keep them into that stereotype, because that will be part of their life, and they'll just constantly, doing this, and you'll even get, stressed out and very challenged, in that type of behavior.
Okay. So when you say not aware of danger, so like a hot cup of tea, if you say, hey, the tea is hot, or a stove is hot, the next time they go to the stove, they'll still want to touch the
Yes,
stove.
yes,
They
yes,
don't
yes,
want,
yes. They don't have that kind of awareness of that kind of danger. So you have to be with them, especially, even just take a typical example. If you let them stand on the roadside, they would know the danger, you know, that are on incoming vehicles, so they have to look left, look right, you know. So it's all of those things. But this take time. After a period of time, they will get to the understanding, because in terms of winning that situation, you have to take them out to the community. Don't isolate them home, you know. Let them be part. You go into shop, you take them shopping, you ensure that they assist you in shopping, getting the items, putting it into the basket, and in fact, you know, giving them the day-to-day exposure, so that, you know, you don't confine them to just home and home and home.
Right, okay. I mean, I know you're dealing with a child that has autism, so you're seeing it on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it has been, well, come 18th of July, she will be 15 years.
15 years, wow.
15
okay.
years, and we really discovered that around the age of 2. She was a normal behaved child until when at the daycare, the principal of the school draw attention and say, hey, the child is just constantly gazing at the board, gazing and gazing for a long period of time. And at that point then, we started to investigate, because when I would say autism, I said, what is this autism? Until I start making investigations and throughout. So you find, we as parents, it's a great challenge and a great struggle, you know, throughout in the period. And as they get into, I would say, adolescence, it's even a greater challenge. And we will need that kind of professional. I mean, when we first heard of it, there was zero, I mean, there was no one that you could have called upon for an assistant. But as it is now, you know, it's bit by bit is going on. In fact, we have to say thanks to the St. George's University. Sometime last year, they hosted a symposium on autism together with the Grandlands Play School. And they brought in some professionals from the United States. And we hope that this should be on and on, because parents here in Grenada need that training. And in fact, it's a very costly, to have the specialists on island, it's a very costly undertaking. And as you will know, from a statistical point of view, the experts have explained that between 2 to 6 persons for a population of about 1,000, you expect someone to be autistic. And in fact, the rate in terms of males is about 4 to 1.
Okay.
So can you imagine a population of about, say, if you expect a population, say, about 4 million, that about 24,000 of those are autistic.
Wow.
In that case,
okay. Do you have other children as well?
Yes, but the first one is not autistic. In fact,
okay.
She's at the T.A. Marisha College. She did very exceptionally well in the CXC exam, and she's now first year in the college. In fact, some of the experts says that if a parent have the first child with autism, most likely the second one could be autistic. You know, these are some of the research, because there are constant research taking place on and on and on to verify, well, what is the cause? Because as of today, we don't have the real cause of autism. Some say that it's due to vaccine in the MMR, or some other preservative that is used in some of the vaccine. So again, the research is still on until we get some final what is really the cause of autism.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And I mean, Ms. Williams, you're at a school for special needs. I'm sure that you deal with a number of kids possibly with autism.
Quite a few. I was surprised that about a few weeks ago somebody called me and asked me how many children that we have who are autistic, and I started doing in my own evaluation, and over 1/3 of our population do have autistic or display autistic tendencies.
Right.
So that's about 20-something out of a population of 62.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, it was amazing when I really sat down and tried to look at it. Yeah.
And I mean, I want to go back a little bit, because you were saying that, you know, you need to take the kids out and expose them and so on.
Yes.
I'm sure that there's people who maybe just think that, oh, you know, the kids, you know, are crazy, or that it's almost undiagnosed, and the kids, I don't want to say mistreated, but are just kind of left and not really exposed, and don't, because the autistic kids have the ability to develop to a large extent, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
But unfortunately, aren't given the opportunity. So, I mean, what is it like having, so you're saying that it's close to 20?
Yeah. in our
Children.
population at school.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah, do
okay.
display that. And one of the things that we notice, as you say, when you're going out with them, she spoke about social interaction. And they may have some behaviors. You may see, I have seen it where we will be out with some children, and we would have what they call an episode. And
Yes.
people would tend to get scared. They might see the child just flapping and
Yes,
jumping and getting on her. And sometimes it's the excitement if it's a new environment, and that's the way of adjusting and dealing. And people will be like trying to move away or getting scared or something like that. But it's just that it's their way of coping, you know. So sometimes it takes a lot. You may have, as a teacher, we would have to attend to the behavior and try to get the child as calm and relaxed. Maybe if it means removing them from the environment for a while or so, but then the reaction of people is something that we always have to deal with.
Okay. You bring them back to some sort of
Normalcy,
break them.
yeah.
Now, autism, it's said that, and maybe it's to do with the strong focus that autistic kids have, but they tend to excel in one area, or I shouldn't say tend to, but there have been traits previously where autistic kids lack the ability to communicate, but they're a math genius, or they create artwork and that
That's
sort
the
of thing.
autistic savants.
And that's,
Yes.
That's what they call autistic savants.
Yes.
So
Okay.
they just excel in one particular area. It's art, music, math, dates, geography. Yeah,
Right.
they just
But-
have the tendency. That's how their brains are
In
wired.
fact, I think somewhere in Florida, in one of the school, that one of the child that attends to the computer repairs is an autistic child, and those are fantastic work, you know, because you know their behavior, like when they are taken in doing a certain job, they do it to the best. Where you may get tired of, you know, but they continue and they will do them. In fact, in some cases, employers may want to take advantage of them too in those cases, but they do when they really get to an area of work, they do the best.
Okay. Have any of you come across any autistic savants here in Grenada?
I haven't seen any in Grenada. We had one at our school, but because I think the limited knowledge of us as teachers, because a lot of our teachers are not trained in the area of special education. And that child, when I met him, he was very good in art. He could have drawn anything like picture perfect. And it was sad that it was not developed in him, but that he was the closest one I saw to being a savant. Anything pertaining to art, picture perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really is important that you don't start excluding these children who display these signs and so on, that you work with them and try to give them as normal a lifestyle as possible. I mean, what is the diagnosis process? I mean, if there's parents out there suddenly saying, hey, you know, I have a 2-year-old and, you know, I've realized that they don't really respond much to communication or some of the traits that you've mentioned. How do people deal with it? What's the next step for them?
Once you notice the signs, I advise that you consult your doctor who would do further investigation. Currently, in order to be diagnosed with autism, you have to be either diagnosed through a neuropsychologist or a psychologist itself. But your doctors can refer you to assistance. Currently at the GAP, which is the Grand Dance Playgroup, they administer what we call an ADOS test, which is a test for autism. So you can consult with your doctors who would then consult with them. Usually, you have to meet certain criteria in what is known currently as the DSM-4, which is the diagnostic screenings for psychiatric. Well, it's usually the psychiatric mental health statistical device that is used. So currently you have to meet certain characteristics within each of the 3 categories to have a diagnosis of autism, and there are generally 5 types of autism. So it's a spectrum. Yes.
Okay.
It falls into 5 categories, so depending on which you would be classified accordingly.
And are those categories based on the type of behaviors, or is it just the level of autism?
The level of autism and behaviors as well.
Oh, it's a combination.
A combination.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because just to state that every child with autism, as I said, that spectrum, you have different signs and symptoms, because my child may behave in a certain pattern, you know, varying. There is very, you know, to say, well, my child behave identical as this one. No. Everyone have the different, you know, different symptoms and their conditions, and they behave in different manners.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, you mentioned some of the statistics about autism, that, you know, 1 in 4 males. What are some of the other statistics about autism? I mean, it's a lot more prevalent than a lot of other
Right. But
things.
currently, the new statistics that came out either Thursday or Friday of last week, in terms of the U.S. Center for Disease Control, is stating that it's now 1 in 88 children that would be diagnosed in autism. Before, it was 1 in 110. It's now 1 in 88, or 1 in 54 children, boys will be diagnosed with autism, and that was 1 in 74. So that you can see that the numbers are increasing, and it's now a global health crisis. And Autism Day was really to be an awareness of the global health crisis. And if that was since 2007 as a global health crisis, it tells us that we're still on that global health crisis.
Right. Okay. Now tell me a little bit more about World Autism Day. What's happening around the world? What's happening here in Grenada?
Well, in terms of Grenada, World Autism Day was a UN convention that was signed on in December 18th of 2007, where participants or nations along the UN convention signed to ratify that April 2nd be declared World Autism Day because of the global health crisis. Currently in Grenada, we are going to have today, we had a number of events building up to today. For example, last Wednesday we had Alpha, who did a hand mirror, which is actually Miss Williams.
Yeah, let's see this hand mirror. I think it's behind the...
Alpha actually has a student who is autistic, and that was their recognition of World Autism Day, since schools are on vacation from today. On Thursday, we had the 3 special education schools, which is the Limes, Victoria, and St. Andrews, coming together for a day of events. So they had a movie day where they looked at Happy Feet. They also had flying of blue kites, and also treasure hunt on that day. On Friday morning, we had the principal from Victoria School for Special Education, and myself appearing on Spice Morning Grenada. And then today we're on Daybreak. This morning, later on this evening, you would have the speech by Mrs. Sandra Thomas, the Prime Minister's wife, PS of Social Development, giving the address on World Autism Day, along with, we have 2 places that would be lit blue. Since the theme for World Autism Day this year is Light It Up Blue, we would have Republic House in Grand Anse being lit blue, and also in St. George's, the Tricentennial Park would be lit blue in observance of World Autism Day.
Okay. Yeah, so the blue theme came up a lot. I noticed that the hand
Blue.
was blue. Is blue a general theme, or is it just this year because it's Light It Up Blue?
This year because it's Light It Up Blue, but also it's also the color designated for autism as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's wonderful. And you say it's just really about raising awareness. And I mean, the awareness is that so that people who have kids that have been displaying some signs and symptoms may realize that you know, this is actually a disease that these kids have, and that there are ways to deal with it. Is that really the goal?
Yes. The goal to build the public's perception on autism, try to kind of curb some of the negative stimulants that goes on with autism, or the views of the public. And we all know that once the public is properly educated, things will get better. We had the taboo of special ed in general in Grenada, and that has now sort of decreased a bit, although there is more work to be done in terms of persons with disabilities and their rights and their need to be participants of society, and they are functional participants of society, and thus we are trying to raise also that autistic persons can be functional members of society.
Any final comments from Mr. St. Louis on Williams?
Yes, well, I would say autism, people now become more aware of it, and us being here is a means of making, educating. I mean, this only one program wouldn't just make everybody know, but I urge, as we continue with the autism, all the cooperative citizens to take this on board in terms of letting the public know. People who have the computers can go onto the website and say, what is autism, to get the definition and to realize that this is, this is not a taboo. This is part, part of life, and the kids suffering that, there are means of way of getting them back to move into the society and behave as us. As I can say from the experience I had, when first diagnosed, my daughter was diagnosed, I said, wow, and I can see the improvement from stage 1 where she was to now. I mean, although she's still within the autism spectrum, but I can see, as I say, it's a challenge, it's a stress, but you have to continue with professional guidance, you'll make the goal. Yeah.
And just one thing I want to say to parents out there who may be looking at their children. Sometimes for autism, the child may be developing normally, and then all of a sudden everything is just stopped.
Yeah. That's usually at age 3.
By age 3, whatever developmental milestones, everything is just gone blank. And the earlier you get help, there is a lot of help now compared to back then. So the earlier you get help, the earlier the child is stimulated, the better the life will be for the child. So once you notice something has changed, as Ms. Hyacinth said, call the Granners Playgroup. I would even say call the special ed desk, and they would put you on to people who can help.
Right.
Even there are principals of schools, preschools, and so who are listening or looking at the program now, they can also do the same thing too. So don't wait until it's too late. The earlier, the better. And the better the life for the child.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming in. I commend you on your efforts, with your own child, with many children, and your efforts to educate and communicate the issue with the public. So keep up the good work. Thank you very, very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.